This is episode 50 of Spiritual AF with Pixie Rose, the podcast for people going on their spiritual journey, knowing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Before we dive into this episode, I wanted to share with you that I am a Beauty by BB ambassador. Beauty by BB is the most beautiful skincare range I have ever used. It is all vegan. There are completely no toxins, no chemicals within these products. The packaging is all made from recyclable material and can be recycled. And honestly, it is beautiful and my skin feels amazing. So if you would like to check out this amazing skincare range, whether you would like to get the whole kit or whether you want to try the beautiful pink face mask or the rejuvenating, cleansing rose water, check it out. My shop is in the show notes, so just go into there and check it out for yourself. You will absolutely love these products. Welcome to episode 50 of Spiritual AF. I'm your host, Pixie Rose, and for this episode, I wanted to explore conscious uncoupling and what happens when you don't experience conscious uncoupling. So first of all, if you've never heard of this term before, it was created, I believe, by a woman named Catherine Woodward Thomas, who wrote the book Conscious Uncoupling. So this book asks us to look at the end of our relationship as an opportunity rather than a failure. Rather than getting angry and bitter towards each other, instead honoring the love and the time that was shared between you both. So I'm talking about breaking up, or, as spiritual folk, we love to redefine things and create new words for everything. And this idea of uncoupling. So you were once a couple, and it's time to part your ways for whatever reasons and consciously uncouple. Another word of this is when in the book Conscious Loving, which I've mentioned before in the podcast, there's this sense of when you're in a relationship, and this is more so in terms of more unhealthy relationships, more codependent relationships, there's this sense of being entangled with each other, and that's energetically and physically. So there's a way to disentangle, so to become more independent. And this is kind of this same idea within this conscious uncoupling. So I'm going to share with you my understanding of conscious uncoupling and then my personal experience of going through a breakup recently and not being very conscious, and what we can do when we have this experience as well. So the author, Catherine, really breaks down the breakup or the uncoupling process into 5 steps. So those 5 steps which she explores in the book, the first one is to find emotional freedom. The second step is to reclaim your power and your life. Step 3 is break the pattern, heal your heart. Step 4 is become a love alchemist. And step 5 is create your happily even after. So Catherine also states in the book that the way that your last relationship ends more or less sets the tone for how your next relationship begins. So I guess exploring this idea, instead of having this way of thinking of, okay, this relationship is no longer serving me and it doesn't matter how it ends, and just to, end things as quick or as easily as possible. And there's so many different ways that people end relationships, right? Like even in non-serious relationships, like there's this whole ghosting thing, which is pretty shitty, or being inauthentic, not speaking your truth to why you may want to end the relationship, or even, which I'll explore and expand on more, trying to find excuses to end the relationship, finding reasons, all of that. Ultimately, this idea of conscious uncoupling is becoming conscious that the relationship is no longer serving you, or that your time is simply done together. Like, you're going to grow as much as you can, and there's a time that you'll have to go your own separate ways, and that's for your own benefit. Even I can't add any resources for you because I'm still exploring this myself, but even in Dolores Cannon's work, there's mention to how relationships can really bring us down, actually. Some relationships, that is, or some experiences of relationships can actually stop our growth or our evolvement. So this is when you become more conscious, you become conscious of this. You see that, with your current partner, and this may or may not be your experience, I do want to really speak to those that may be questioning their relationships, because I guess ultimately in this episode, I want to explore the fact that we don't actually need to have a reason to end our relationship. In the simple fact that you feel like the relationship is no longer serving you, or that you've grown as much as you can with that partner, and that you may experience more growth on your own. And honestly, I have seen this within my previous relationship. I felt like, because we'd broken up and gotten back together and then broken up again, and it's so interesting because he seems to grow more without me. So that really says to me that there was something about our relationship that was stopping that growth for some reason. And that may or may not be anything towards me and what I do in my relationships. It may just be the simple fact that that's what happens with some people. I often do feel like my energy is a bit like the moon, in the sense that I often bring out a lot of shadow work and that sort of thing in people. But ultimately, we need the sun to grow. We're part of the earth, and the earth needs the sun to grow. So that's sort of the way that I look at things in some ways. I really do want to explore this idea of conscious uncoupling. And if this is something that you're interested in doing, again, like speaking to those that may be questioning your relationship, may feel like you want some time alone, you want some time of separation, you may want to disentangle from your partner. And I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. And in terms of relationships, we could explore so much, right? Like, it's so tricky to know when is the time to see things out, to keep trying. Like, I don't want to be like an advocate for just leaving when things get too hard. I don't believe that this is what conscious uncoupling is about. And even I was listening to a podcast just recently, and they were talking about how, the difference between when it's important for you to push through something, so pushing through the challenges within your relationship, versus when nothing is wrong at all and there's a feeling of maybe incompleteness or a feeling of, dissatisfaction in whatever way. And I think that's really, truly when you know that the relationship is no longer serving you and that you're no longer growing because you're not getting those same challenges. So, adopting this idea could be really profound and transformational. if we are open to this new paradigm of living more consciously, which is what I'm all about in all areas of our life, if we can just be more conscious. So not just at the beginning, because I do feel like when we enter a new relationship, often we are very conscious, even overly conscious, overly self-conscious. And, I really believe that it's so important to be our true, authentic selves in that start of the relationship, because I have seen and experienced when people aren't their true selves and maybe they're trying to make themselves look better than what they are. And I know that can sound offensive to some, but honestly, even I've done it before. I remember going on a date with somebody, and this was back in the day when I used to go out for dates, to go on dates at like bars and pubs and stuff. And I'd go out for a drink with people. And in one date in particular, I was definitely really keen on this person. I was not disappointed by this Tinder date. And we got a drink, and I, just sloppily sort of put my drink down on the table. And I'd noticed that he put his drink down on a coaster. So then I kind of like discreetly put my drink on a coaster, like hoping that he wouldn't think that I was a slob. But ultimately, like, I don't use fucking coasters. Like, in that situation, I really could have, stuck to my true self of like, I don't use coasters. I don't think about that sort of thing. Even just something as small as that. But, it's not a good thing if you're entering a new relationship and you're not being your true self, and you're maybe sort of, hiding aspects of yourself. Because the sooner we know each other's true selves, the sooner we can really determine if the relationship is for us. So becoming really conscious, not just at the beginning of our relationships, but how we step away from those relationships as well. Again, I mentioned earlier that sometimes, it can get to this point in our relationship, and especially if you've tried really hard, right? Like, especially if you've put a lot of effort and energy into your relationship and making it work, whether you've done relationship counseling or this or that or the other, and then there's this sense of just giving up and just not caring at all anymore. And really, let's not let it get to that point. If you're feeling like things need to end, if you're becoming resentful in any way, then, be conscious, step away from it before you get too exhausted and you become very unconscious. And honestly, I think that's part of the experience that I had recently. Was in all honesty, I was trying to end the relationship very gently, and there's a lot that I could go into within that, but I had a lot of fear around ending the relationship because I really cared for this person, and I wanted to protect him. I really wanted to protect him from his own emotions and from his own pain. And I think I can do that with the people that I love, especially my kids and that sort of thing. I have this sense of like wanting to protect people from pain and taking on that pain myself, which is very much this fawn response that I do in terms of like my, fight, flight, freeze or fawn. I'm very much a fawner in these situations. I really kind of go into this people-pleasing sort of thing, and I want to be true to myself, and especially in this situation, I knew that it was time to walk away from this relationship, that it was becoming unhealthy, and that I was not serving this person in particular, and that they weren't serving me ultimately. But I definitely got confused between being conscious and being nice. And I don't know if I've spoken about this on the podcast before, and somebody who I actually learnt a bit about in terms of being nice rather than, just being true, you can do the right thing. You can be conscious, but you don't have to be nice. There really is some negativity around being nice. And as the feminine, we can often go into this, I've got to be nice about things. And really, being nice is quite submissive. And as I mentioned, it was Felicie Malay, who I'll link in the show notes. I'm pretty sure her YouTube video on this topic is still up, so I'll link that one in the show notes, because I was being too nice and really I needed to be more firm. And what happened in that process was, I wasn't conscious of my own personal boundaries. And in me not being conscious of my own personal boundaries, my boundaries were crossed to the point where it really felt like there's no way to come back on that one. And really, I do feel like, I'm great at taking responsibility for things. So I really take this one on, and I've really recognized my lessons within this breakup personally that I did want to share with everybody. And it's been a couple of months now, so I know I've mentioned in the podcast, I had to take some time off. I missed a couple of weeks in doing the podcast because, I don't want to show up here in the midst of learning these lessons. I want to show up here having learnt my lessons. And that was a big lesson for me, was I can be conscious and I don't have to be nice. I can stay true to myself without having to worry or take responsibility for other people's feelings or trying to take on anyone else's pain. So, really letting that one go. If you're resonating to that one, I'd really love to just reflect on these feelings, just reflect on these situations that you may be resonating to as well. But honestly, as we all know, everyone's been through it, and breakups can be really painful. It's just like grief. Any loss is going to feel like grief, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful. Or we can become more conscious about it. And this is part of what this conscious uncoupling is about. So now I want to speak to those who may be experiencing a breakup and maybe on that other side of the spectrum. If you're feeling pain about having to let go of a relationship or having to be let go of, if you're the one that really wanted to continue with the relationship and they felt it was time to let things go, and you're in a lot of pain about this, I really don't believe that we're here on this earth to suffer. I think that suffering is a lesson, and again, this is part of becoming more conscious, is letting go of that pain, that attachment, and rising above it and becoming really aware of the lessons, really aware of what you're doing, taking responsibility. So if you are experiencing this pain or this grief from relationships, again, taking that opportunity to reflect on this, okay, reflecting on your attachment. And I spoke a little bit about attachment in my last solo cast, the polyamory, open relationships, and conscious monogamy episode is looking at your attachment style. And if you are feeling too attached or too detached, there really is a healthy medium with this one. Also, I really believe that, ultimately I believe that all problems in relationships stem from ego. And this is something that I'm going to explore more within the podcast. I have even sort of half written a book about this whole topic, which I've been picking back up and, going over because it's coming up in my life again. And I've gone deeper into this lesson and this experience of ego, because again, that's that being nice, I was just in my ego. So if we awaken to our level of attachment, when we release our ego, and when we recognize the lessons we're being presented with, because I do believe that everyone who comes into our life teaches us something. So even, whether or not, whether you're currently in a relationship, whether you're thinking about your exes, whether you're thinking about friends, family, every single person, even just somebody who brush wrong or in the supermarket or something, somebody who you might be triggered by, or anyone, every single person that comes into our life presents us with an opportunity for growth. There's a lesson, especially within our major relationships, with experiences that we hold on to. There are some really powerful lessons there, and recognizing those lessons and learning from them and going into your next relationships, not this broken person from this previous relationship that, has trust issues and has this issue and, assumes that every person is going to be like their ex. No, that's not how things work. And I do this still as well. I'm not a professional on this. I still have to remind myself that, my current partner is not my last partner. But, I'll catch myself. I'll be surprised by something, whether it's an expectation or, thinking that you're dating the same person over and over again. Sometimes you are. And that's when you aren't learning those lessons that you're being presented with. If if there's repeated themes within your relationships, or the same sort of thing happens, for example, if you get with every partner that you get with cheats on you, there's a lesson in that for you. It's not that every other person is a shitbag. It's that you are manifesting that into your life for a reason, and there's something that you need to learn from that experience, and there's something that you could take responsibility for in order to change and have a different experience in the future. And often we mirror each other as well. So often our partner is just going to be this beautiful mirror, and I've seen it myself, when I first started dating after I had my daughter, I was very cynical, and I was really not interested in getting into any sort of form of serious relationship. I really just wanted to connect with people, and I just, in terms of attachment levels, I was very, very detached. I was really not open to experience sort of true forms of love, or allowing myself to be open enough to get into a really special lifelong partnership or anything like that. So what kind of person do I manifest in that situation? But of course, very unavailable, non-committal types. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to get. That's what I'm putting out there. That's what I'm going to get. That's what I received. So looking at what you're being presented with, what lessons are you learning from your previous partners, rather than feeling hard done by? And again, I go into this, I've shared this openly and honestly so many times, my favorite archetype, which I'm really doing my best to let go of, is the victim. Oh my God, I feel like the victim is so hard to let go of, because in all of these situations, I very easily go into a blaming sort of thing, it's all their fault. And then, just poor me. So rather than doing that, rather than going into the victim, rather than having these thoughts oh, I just wasted the last 4 years of my life with this person, instead trusting that what is meant to be will simply be. That's it. At the very end of the day, as a spiritual being, knowing that we are creating our realities, we are manifesting everything, whether unconsciously or consciously, and the goal here is to become more conscious, right? You want to consciously manifest your ideal partner, if that's what you want. If you don't want to focus on your, relationships, then focus on whatever it is in life that you want to manifest. But knowing that at the end of the day, what is meant to be will be. Trust in the divine, okay? But this book, Conscious Uncoupling, so this book can actually be done together. So these steps, if you are, again, thinking about ending a relationship or currently going through a breakup or anything like that, you can go get this book, Conscious Uncoupling by Catherine Woodward Thomas. I'm going to put that book in the show notes, of course. I'm on Goodreads if anyone's on that. I know that it's not as super popular, but I really love it. I love Goodreads. I love keeping track of the books that I've read. So feel free to try and find me on that, because I'd love to see what other people are reading as well. But I'm going to put that book in the show notes, and if you want, you can grab it. You can do it together or you can do it on your own. If you're still grieving a breakup, you can definitely do this book, okay? Like even if it's been 6 months, 6 years, whatever, check out this book and just let it go. Allow this book to help you and go through those steps on reclaiming your power back. And I guess on that one, that's what I really felt like was part of my biggest lesson. Was I went from being completely detached and not open to having a meaningful lifelong relationship to then getting a little bit of a taste of it. And I guess I got scared as well that could be possible for me, because it's something that I really want. We all, and it's so interesting looking at your astrology chart, because you can sort of see the things that you've mastered in past lives, the things in life that come easy to you. So for me, intuition comes easy, and business and career comes easy. I'm very much connected to my soul's purpose. Relationships, that's what I'm here to master. It's definitely something that is a big focus of mine, is mastering my relationships. And that's all relationships. That's friendships, family, that's romantic relationships, and then ultimately community, And I kind of feel like I've felt in the past that maybe there could even be a level in terms of this mastery of relationships. And I feel like the first level is yourself. And I really truly believe this. I feel like I'm not sure if it's possible to really be close and connected and have this really beautiful, powerful relationship with others if you don't have that for yourself. There's so many quotes around, you can only love others as much as you love yourself. So if you have little love for yourself, then that's pretty much your bandwidth for others. And I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years, especially since having my kids and going through my own divorce and going through my own rock bottom experiences, that was all about self-love for me. And, so I feel like I've got that, I've got that self-love. And even that, there's, of course, layers that I'm uncovering again within this relationship and this breakup that I've experienced. Was I've gone back and I guess I've lost a bit of love for myself, and I've had to build myself up again. Going from one extreme to the next of this very detached person to okay, I want this. I do want a lasting love. I do want, a life partner, and I want to share my life with somebody who's deserving. And, I don't want to settle on just settling down with anybody. There's definitely parts of or traits of a person that I require as this person that I am. I like to call myself a highly complex being. Not a bad thing, but not all can handle that, which is totally fine with me. And I'm just very open with my needs and, what I'm wanting out of relationships, I guess. But I went from one extreme to being very detached to then wanting that relationship and allowing someone to get close. And in learning how to allow someone to get close to me was I actually lost myself again. It became a little bit codependent, and I feel like we were both losing our personal power and that sort of thing. Just really recognizing that in our relationships, and again, becoming conscious on yourself and how you are in relationships with other people. So allowing yourself to go through this book in particular, if you would like some help on how to consciously end a relationship so that it doesn't end with this terrible divorce. And I have plenty of readings where, that's part of why people come to see me and get a reading from me is, they feel like the relationship's done. They feel like they're just housemates or whatever, and they want to release it consciously, and there is a way to do it. There is a formula. And I do recognize that it is difficult to consciously uncouple when one person is ready to let go of the relationship, but the other person isn't. And I feel like maybe this is part of the experience that I had and why it wasn't able to remain conscious. And it did get nasty, and I guess I'm disappointed within myself on how I handled things. Just taking responsibility on the fact that I was trying to be too nice. I was trying to do things gently rather than just being true to myself. And that was a big lesson for me. So if you're in that situation, if you're ready to let go of a relationship but the other person isn't, be true to yourself and let go of that niceness and just be firm. You can be conscious and be firm. Another thing that I, kind of didn't recognize is like time frames. Like if you're living with somebody and you want to consciously uncouple, you want that space, it's okay to give a time frame. I kind of thought that was like being a bitch, but in the end, like I'd asked for that space, and 2 months down the track, I didn't have it. And then it got nasty, so rather than allowing things to get nasty and like get clear, have those shitty conversations on separating and who's going to take what. Like if you got furniture together, if you're living together, if you got kids together, you all know I've been through all that. I'm single mum to 2 little ones, and I do feel like with my divorce, like it was able to remain really conscious. And it was really hard work for me. Like we even went to like marriage counseling or Relationships Australia. And we went there because we were like, okay, we've decided we're going to separate. We want help on how to do it. And if I knew that this book existed back then, like that would have been amazing, because honestly, that counseling session was crap. And we ended up in a big fight because instead of her, the counselor going through, these are the steps, gotta mediate and talk about care of the kids and different things like that. Instead, she wanted us to hash out the why are we separating, and then got into a big argument. It was really crappy. But we really did our best to stay conscious. And, I've always sort of thought that just because a relationship has to end doesn't mean that the friendship has to as well. Or sometimes it does, depending on how it goes, right? Like you really it's a case by case basis. But for me, I haven't felt this whole okay, we're done, we're broken up, I hate you, I never want to see you again. That's really not me. I've always stayed in contact with all of my exes, and I've been able to keep that friendship open and been able to let go of the romantic relationship. But I know that that's not always possible for other people, and it's only possible if you are truly letting go of the romantic side of things. If you're hanging on to the fact that you want to get back together or whatever, then it's not going to work out, okay? That you really can't be friends with somebody who's just trying to win you back. If you're listening and you're that person that is holding on to these relationships, be respectful. If somebody has asked for space, give them space. If somebody has said like they no longer want to continue the relationship, if you still want them, that's fine for you to still want them, but respect them and give them that space. Don't chase them. I think this is similar to and I want to do a whole episode around twin flames very soon, but honestly, I think that especially if you think that you're experiencing like a twin flame relationship, there's these stages of twin flames and there's these traits. And one of the traits is like this runner-chaser dynamic that, like one twin will end the relationship and run, and then the other twin will chase. And you know what? Like, I think that's really unconscious. And I'm not doing that. But I've always been, that's my stance. It's like, if you tell me you don't want to, connect anymore, if you don't want to see me or you don't want things to be romantic anymore, I'll fucking respect that. That may not change the love that I have for somebody, but I will not fucking chase anyone. And I don't want to be chased, okay? Like, I don't want to play games in my relationships. And I think that using that whole runner-chaser twin flame dynamic, it's not healthy. It's not conscious either. Whether or not you're twins, like the only way that you're going to achieve that union, and again, I'm going to get more into twin flames in another episode, but if you want that union, you got to get conscious. Another aspect of that twin flame is the separation stage as well, which I do believe is true for twin flames. If it's a true twin flame connection, there will be a period of separation. I feel like even that period of separation is confirmation that it's a twin flame relationship. Again, just trusting the divine. If you're in a period of separation and you want to get back together, trust that whatever is meant to be will be. But again, more on twin flames on another episode, because this is all about conscious uncoupling, or what happens when it's not. While we are talking about health and detox, I want to share with you Julianne Bremner from Daughter Raw's Detox program. Now, Julianne is incredible. I had her on episode 18, so check out that one for more information. Julianne is a certified detox specialist, and she has created an incredible detox program that I have gone through myself, and it has changed my life, honestly. I am vegan, I'm a passionate vegan, and so is Julianne, and she turns veganism and eating well into such a simplified process. I just feel amazing after going through her detox program. It was incredibly supportive. She gives you so much information. It was so incredibly informative. If you would like to learn more about Julianne's detox program, check out her links in the show notes, Daughter Raw. Get in contact with her to join her next program. So as I've mentioned before, if you do want to end a relationship, you don't have to look for a good enough reason. Like, you don't have to wait for them to do something, because what you're going to do is you're going to manifest a shitty thing to happen. If you're sticking around in a relationship that isn't authentic to you, that's when shit's going to get real, and somebody's going to cheat, you're going to cheat, people start lying to each other, whatever happens, again, that's all games. Let's just be fucking honest, connect to your truth, and know that your happiness is important. If you're not happy in your relationship, because that's what I believe love is at the end of the day, and happiness. I don't believe that we can make each other happy. I don't believe that any one person can make the other person happy. What I believe is a healthy, independent, conscious relationship is when you have found that self-love for yourself. I have connected to your own happiness in life, and you want to share that with others. You want to share that life, that love and happiness with others or with somebody else. That's what I believe is a healthy, important relationship, and that's what I believe is important. So if you don't have that, if one person isn't happy, generally the other person isn't either. Okay, so if you're not currently happy in your relationship, get conscious, get real, connect to your truth, reflect on what's going on for you, reflect on how you're feeling. I've always believed that everything is mutual. So when one person feels something, that generally the other person does as well. But when this isn't sort of the case, like when you have that runner chaser, or when you have that, one person wants to end the relationship, the other person doesn't, whether or not everything is mutual. And I kind of feel like this situation is when one person's not in alignment to their truth, because I don't think it's possible to, have one person be so ready for this relationship and the other person isn't feeling it. If that's what the experience is, then there's something out of alignment for somebody. And again, the only way that you're going to dig into that and see what's true for you is by reflecting. From my last relationship, I know that we worked really hard on a lot of different things. We'd done Landmark together, so we had that. I think a difficult thing that a conscious person may experience within their relationships is there's this desire to wake others up, to help raise their consciousness. And of course, we want that for our partners, especially if there's a great love there. You really love somebody, you want them to be more conscious, you want them to maybe wake up to their blind spots and different things like that. But the problem that occurs here is that we cannot sacrifice ourselves in being the helper. This kind of goes back to one of the first sort of self-help books that I ever read, which was actually Women Who Love Too Much. And this book was so me. And obviously, I can still do this in my relationships, is I see their potential and I see I could help them with this, or if only they did Landmark, or if only they meditated, or only if they journaled. And I go into this I could just help you and then you'll be more conscious and then we'll have a better relationship. Again, I feel like the lesson from my recent uncoupling was that that's not my responsibility. So just because I love somebody doesn't mean I need to stick around putting all of my effort and energy into dealing with somebody else's issues. I remember even saying within my last relationship, I don't want to be your counselor. I wanted them, if they were having distress, or if they were being triggered, if they were feeling like they couldn't trust me, it kind of got to a point where I was like, this is your problem, not mine. And it was exhausting, really. I think I might have taken on that role for so long, and then I kind of woke up to it, and it was taking hours. Like something would happen and we'd be discussing things for hours and hours, and I'd be trying to get them to see what they were doing, or to see whatever was in their blind spot. And they just couldn't see it, because that's the thing with blind spots, is only that person can discover it. You can say it plainly, and be this is what's in your blind spot. This is what you're doing. Or if only you did this and we'd be able to communicate better, or whatever. Ultimately, they're the only ones that can discover it. That's kind of the magic in discovering your blind spots and becoming more conscious, is you need to have that light bulb moment yourself. So if you're a conscious person and you want your partner to be more conscious, let go of trying to make that happen, because only they can have that experience if they want to. If they don't want that growth, they're not going to get it. Ultimately, I do think that that's, like I said before, not that we need to find reasons, but if there are problems that are happening in your relationship that are impacting your growth or your happiness, and you're doing everything that's in your personal power, you're taking responsibility for everything for you, then it's okay to end a relationship if it's impacting your growth or your happiness. As I mentioned before, unfortunately, I did lose myself in the last couple of months, and I got really disappointed in how I reacted, and I guess I've kind of had to go backwards again. Like I said, I'm kind of reclaiming myself again. I let go of my personal power, and I need to not do that again in my relationships. So I'm just uncovering this whole other layer of myself and really taking that time to solidify the lessons that I have needed to learn in terms of like boundaries and speaking my truth. Even that got lost in it. I never thought that I wouldn't be able to speak my truth in a situation, but that definitely became impacted. And as I mentioned, I've gotten really disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to consciously uncouple. Basically, I need to take some time to forgive myself for how I've reacted during this time, for my own behavior, fully taking responsibility for what I've done in this breakup experience, in this uncoupling, and definitely it's been a disentangling experience. And moving forward, making sure that I don't take those problems into my next relationship. I look at the lesson, and I do feel like the lesson is pretty clear for me. And yeah, I start with a clean slate. Even I was having a discussion with my current partner that I mentioned in that last solo cast. I was upset about something, and he said to me, which this was like, I was like, yeah, you are so fucking right. And I was upset about something, and I was telling him what I was upset about. And he said to me, I realize that this has been a problem for you in the past, and that you've had this conversation in the past, that this is the first time you're having this conversation with me. And I was like, holy shit, I'm doing it again. I'm like taking all that shit from the past and putting it in my present. It's destroying my future. We're only human at the end of the day. That's not true. No, we're spiritual beings, remember? So easy to forget in this 3D world of problems. And yeah, so I'm so grateful for my experiences. I really am, and I'm really grateful to be able to share them with you. And of course, I would absolutely love to hear your experiences too. I'd love to hear what you think of this episode, as well as any others. What topics you might want to explore in this space as well. Thanks again to Dave for putting together this episode. If you would like help in creating your own podcast or any sort of podcasting or video editing, feel free to check out Dave's information in the show notes. He's a real star at this sort of work, and I'm so grateful to have his help within this podcast, because I absolutely love doing this podcast. Dave has also been helping me get this podcast onto my YouTube channel. It's Pixie Rose. Just search Pixie Rose and you'll see I've got guided meditations on there, some channeled messages, and now this podcast. So if you prefer to listen or watch videos on YouTube, for my interviews in particular, I'll have that video format from our Zoom calls up onto YouTube, so you can enjoy that if that's what you prefer to do. And it was so amazing in going through all my old episodes. I actually totally forgot on my little outro, so bringing that one back. So please remember to follow this podcast for more interdimensional conversations on all things life, death, and everything in between. And remember, even if your wings have been clipped off, they can always regrow.